If your job at a healthcare facility includes disinfecting against viruses, you know prevention is the best medicine, and maintaining healthy spaces starts with a healthy cleaning routine. Grainger's world-class supply chain helps ensure you have the quality products you need when you need them, from disinfectants and cleaning supplies to personal protective equipment, so you can help deliver a clean bill of health. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
Hey, warmer for the low. Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSIN Family Podcast. We've got an excellent podcast for you, as we're going to be joined in segment number 2 by one of our good friends, as we're talking with Ben Wilson all about the NL Central. We're going to be discussing with him the Brewers' outlook, the positives and the negatives that we've seen out of them, the way that their minor league pitching has really been able to step up when they've been held up to the big league level. And then we're going to be taking a look a little bit league-wide at what he's noticing, also a pitcher or two that he's feeling very bullish about in the final segment. Going to get you guys picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Saturday as we touch them all. If you do have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one of two ways we'll fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, Larry CM, they meet us on Matter, so per usual, please do send these into the timeline. Otherwise, find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. And then from there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. While I did not get in any Twitter/X questions today, everything is powered by Edge Boost. Over at Edge Boost, they're making sure that bettors are able to access the funds that they are so deserving of every single day, and they're able to do so 24/7, 365 on leap years, 366 days out of the year, because this is nothing that runs on credit. It's just a bank account that you're able to utilize anywhere, anytime for all of your gambling-related transactions. When you go to edgeboost.bet, utilize that promo code of Greg, G-R-E-G. That'll get you a dollar-for-dollar match on your first deposit up to $25. Now let's take a look back at everything that we saw in baseball on Friday. Tried to find some trends and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
By far the best home under team in all of baseball plays another home under. The Walker Texas Rangers get the win over the Chicago White Sox. This by a count of 3-1 and for the Chicago White Sox. Right now, their road record is really, really rough, as this team has went 7-29 on the road this far this season. The only worst team is Rockies at 6-29 on the road. We'll get into that, but for the Texas Rangers, 26 unders to 8 overs at home this far this season, as Adrian "Don't Call Him Doogie" Howser, not great, not terrible, actually began his season with the minor league affiliate for the Texas Rangers out there in Round Rock. 3 runs allowed over the course of 5 innings. Did give up a home run as Josh Smith got jiggy with it. 7th home run of the campaign, and it was a full-on bullpen game for the Texas Rangers. Sean Armstrong, 3 scoreless innings. Jacob Webb, 2 scoreless innings. Luke Jackson, a scoreless inning. Chris Martin, a pair of outs out of the bullpen, scoreless. He did have a run given up in a third of an inning by Hobie Milner, but you also had Cole Winn along with Robert Garcia, spy scoreless inning, and for the White Sox, Tyler Gilbert was able to give you 2 scoreless innings, and Dan Altavia be able to come in, and he was able to hold down the fort for a scoreless inning of his own. You did see an over out there in Kansas City, which you don't see a lot of those, as for the Kansas City Royals, they've also been one of your best under teams this season with now 29 overs, 40 unders, and a push, and it was all based on the fact that Mason Miller gave up 3 runs in the ninth that you did get this over. This by kind of 6-4. The A's do get the win. And for the A's, by the way, 40 overs, 26 unders, and 5 pushes. Best over team in all of baseball. And Luis Severino maintains a sub-1 ERA on the road. 1 run allowed in 7 2/3 innings. He entered in this game with a 0.87 ERA on the road. TJ McFarland and out of the bullpen, and then Miller gives up 3 runs over the course of his inning. But you had a pair of home runs by the Athletics, as you had Luis Arias be able to get his 6th home run of the campaign, and Austin wins. Well, he did win this one with his 4th home run of the campaign, as Michael Wacha, well, turned into the dying Pac-Man voice. It was more like Michael Waka 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 Waka. He gives up 5 runs over the course of 5 1/3 innings. Steven Cruz gives up a run in 2/3 inning. Taylor Clark, 2 scoreless innings, and Carlos Estevez was able to hold down the fort. He was able to land a scoreless inning as well. You were able to get plenty of scoreless innings out there in Milwaukee, as the Brewers, they do end up getting the job done over the St. Louis Cardinals. This by a count of 3-2, and with regards to the St. Louis Cardinals, Eric Fetty Wap had himself a pretty solid start. He gives up 3 runs over the course of 5 1/3 innings. Steven Matz, 5 outs out of the bullpen, scoreless. Riley O'Brien, he was able to come in and he gave you a scoreless inning. And for the Cardinals. They go just 2 of 9 with men in scoring position. Freddie Peralta continues to be pretty rock solid for the Brewers. His strikeout numbers are down this season, but he was able to do a nice job supplying the team with just 1 run allowed over the course of 6 innings. Jerry Koenig, Ebner Uribe, both on the scoreless setting, and then you did have Trevor McGill give up a run in an inning, but team is still able to persevere. For the Arizona Diamondbacks, they're back above 500 for the first time since dinosaurs roamed the earth. 5-1. They take it to the Slam Diego Padres as Stephen Kolek, 5 runs, 4 of which were earned in 4 1/3 innings, including a pair of bombs. Not so savory there as Josh Naylor, he lives up to his name. He's able to nail his 9th home run in the campaign, and then you're able to have Corbin Carroll go deep, home run number 20 of the campaign for him. As for Ryan Nelson, the starter, 1 unearned run given up in 5 innings. You had from there Juan Barillo along with Kyle Backus combined for 2 scoreless innings. Ryan Thompson, Shelby Miller, they both on the scoreless setting. And for the San Diego Padres, credit where it is due. This was a bullpen that was able to do a pretty rock solid job, as you had a pair of guys in Wandy Peralta along David Morgan lend a scoreless setting, and Sean Reynolds 5 outs out of the bullpen scoreless as well for the Houston Astros. Certainly it's been a topsy-turvy sort of season for them, but now they're back up to 39-30, leading the AL West as they take it to the Minnesota Twins. This by a count of 10-3 as Chris Paddock, he had been really good up until this point. He had given up 3 earned runs or fewer in each of his last 12 starts, and the regression monster was very, very hungry for him. 9 runs, 8 of which were earned, given up in 4 innings across 12 hits, and he does allow a home run to one Mr. Jose Altuve, 10th home run in the campaign. And for the Twins, they actually did get a trio of solo home runs. Royce Lewis, who re-injured himself in this game off of Mr. Gordon, he was able to get home run number 2 of the campaign. You also had Colton Gordon give up a home run to Willie Castro, 7th home run season. Then Ty France, when it was too little too late, off of Steven Okert, he gets his 5th home run of the campaign for Gordon. He gives up 2 solo home runs in 6 innings of work. Bennett Sosa, Caleb Ort both on the scoreless setting, and Steven Okert, he supplies the scoreless setting as well. And then for the Twins bullpen, not too bad in this one. Danny Kalum allows his first earned run of the season. He had actually went, I believe it was either 19 or 20 appearances without giving up a run, gave up a run in his inning of work. Griffin Jackson, he gets jacks up, he gives you a scoreless setting. And then Justin Topa, he was able to come in and he lends 2 scoreless settings as well. For the Colorado Rockies, they have 44 multiple run losses thus far this season. They fall to 13-56, 12-4. The Atlanta Braves take it to them after the Rockies actually got up 4-1 in this game. And to put that into perspective, no other team in the National League has more than 42 total losses. So yeah, that's not great to say the least. As for German Marquez, actually a solid start. He was able to come in there for 5 innings, gave up 1 run, and then boy, oh boy, did this bullpen do a nice job of lighting this game on fire. As you had 5 runs, 4 of which were earned, given up by Ryan Rolson in his inning of work. Victor Vondick gives up 3 runs in an inning, including home run. Jake Berg gives up 3 runs in an inning, including home run, as Marcell Ozuna gets his 11th home run of the season. Michael Harris, he gets home run number 6 of the campaign, as Bryce Elder, he pitched like he was Elder Lee in this one, as he gives up 4 runs in 3 1/3 innings, and he allowed a home run along the way. Going deep for the Colorado Rockies, Ryan McMahon, his 9th home run in the campaign, but bullpen from there was very rock solid, as you had a combined 2 scoreless innings out of Pierce Johnson along with Aaron Bummer, and then you had a combined 2 scoreless innings out of Rossi Iglesias and Yadiel de los Santos. Dylan Dodd, pair of outs out of the bullpen scoreless, and then Dylan Lee was able to come in and he was able to give you a scoreless inning as well. You were able to have a lot of run scoring out there with the Philadelphia Phillies as well. They absolutely lambasted the Toronto Blue Jays, as the Blue Jays had won 11 out of their last 13 games. Not anymore, as 8-0 the Philadelphia Phillies get the job done. And for Ranger Suarez, has now allowed 6 runs of earned runs in the course of his last 7 starts. 7 scoreless innings here. Joe Ross, Taijuan Walker, both give you a scoreless inning, and Kyle Schwarber, a Schwarbomb, 22nd home run in the campaign that comes off of Kevin Gausman, who's now allowed at least 3 runs in 7 out of his last 10 starts, as he gives up 4 runs over the course of 5 innings. Eric Swanson, 3 runs given up in his inning work. You had from there Mason Fluharty give up a run in an inning, and Braden Fisher, he was able to come in there, he gave you a scoreless inning. Paul Skeens has been able to do a nice job for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Once again gets a no decision, but the team does get the win. 2-1 the final, as the Pirates are now 7-8 and Paul Skeens starts, which I find to be very insane, and he delivered once again. Now, not a ton of length. He did give up a pair of walks, and they drove up his pitch count. 5 scoreless innings, so you did have a run given up in 1/3 of an inning by Caleb Ferguson, but Carmen Molodzinski, he comes in, he's able to give you 2 scoreless innings. Dennis Santana, 5 outside the bullpen scoreless, and David Bennar has to come in for the 10th inning, and he does not poop the Bennar. He was able to give you 8 scoreless inning, and For the Pirates, they go just 1 of 8 with men in scoring position, but for the Cubs, they went 0 of 10 with men in scoring position as Caleb Horton, he hears a who, and he was able to do a very rock-solid job in this one. He was able to come in for 5 2/3 innings scoreless. Caleb Theobar, and out of the bullpen scoreless. Ryan Brazier, along Daniel Palencia, both on his scoreless inning. Brad Keller gives up a run in his inning of work, and then Drew Pomeranz, he comes in the 10th inning. He allows an unearned run in his inning work, and that turned out to be the difference for a Cubs team that could not drive them in. Not being able to drive them in was the LA Angels, as for the Angels, they fall to the Baltimore Orioles just by a count of 2-0. Game that involved quite a bit of a rain delay, as well as Jack Conowitz allows 2 solo home runs in 4 1/3 innings. Ramon Laureano, 8th home run this campaign, and Ryan Arner in his 10th. But how about Charlie Morton? 10 strikeouts in 5 scoreless innings. Ynier Cano, Gregory Soto, Byron Baker, along with Felix Bautista. Don't you know? Those guys all gave you a scoreless inning in what has been a very, very rough bullpen for the LA Angels. Not bad here. Connor Brogdon, pair of outside the bullpen scoreless. Brock and Rolberg, pair of outside the bullpen scoreless. 1 1/3 inning scoreless from Hunter Strickland, who's actually been very good for the team, by the way. And then you were able to get a scoreless inning out of Hector Neris as well. You had a lot of scoring by the Detroit Tigers. They lambasted the Cincinnati Reds by a count of 11-5 as for the Redlegs, Nick Martinez, not the start he was looking for. Gives up 4 runs over the course of 5 innings, including a trio of bombs, as Javi Baez, he was able to come in and he gave you a home run number 7 of the campaign. Gleyber Torres, he goes deep twice, once off of Martinez, once off of Ian Gabot for home runs number 6 and 7 of the campaign, and then Riley Green, also off of Mr. Martinez. He goes deep, he's able to get home run number 14 of the campaign as Brand Herter, he was the opener in this game, and he opened things up with a pair of outs out of the bullpen, scoreless pretty much, and Kadir Montero, well, he was a little bit Montero-Bull with the fact that he gave up a pair of homers, but both were solo shots. 5 innings, he allows those 2 solo runs as TJ Friedel, he's able to get home run number 8 of the campaign, and Ellie De La Cruz, he's able to get his 14th home run of the season. From there, you did have 3 runs given up by John Brebbie in a third of an inning, but you had Matt Gage, his number is 99, I guess there's no 99 Gage, but that said, he had a pair of outside the bullpen scoreless. I was hoping his number was 12. They're holding a scoreless inning, and then Chase Lee is able to give you 4 outside the bullpen scoreless, and for the Tigers at 46-25, that is the best record out there in the big leagues. A team that has a pretty rock solid record as well, that would be the New York Yankees, but they do fall to the Boston Red Sox just by a kind of 2-1 in 10 innings, as Ryan Yarbrough, not a ton of length, but gives up just 1 run in 4 1/3 innings. 4 outside the bullpen scoreless, Jonathan Loaiza, Ian Hamilton, Fernando Cruz, and then Tim Hill, he gives up an unearned run in the 10th inning as you had Carlos Narvaez get an RBI single to get the job done. Lone form of offense for the Yankees came in the 9th inning. Aaron Judge splits up what was trying to be a complete game shutout for Garrett Crochet. He goes deep for home run number 26 of the campaign. Garrett Crochet gives up that solo run in 8 1/3 innings. Aroldis Chapman from there, a pair of outs out the bullpen scoreless, and Garrett Whitlock was able to give you a scoreless inning as well for the Tampa Bay Rays. They got down very early in this one. They got down by 4 runs by a count of 5-1, but they're able to rally and they're able to get the job done. This by a count of 7-5 thanks to a 6 spot in the 6th inning. For Clay Holmes, he didn't lend a lot of length, but he did his part. 1 solo run given up in 5 innings as you had Jonathan Aranda get his 8th home run of the campaign, and Danny Jansen off of Max Kranick gets his 6th home run of the campaign, as this was chronic for Max Kranick as he gives up 2 runs in 2 2/3 innings. Did inherit a few runners from Paul Blackburn, who he certainly walked the plank in this one. He does give up a grand total of 4 runs, and he gets only 1 out of the bullpen. From there, you did have a pair of scoreless innings out of Justin Garza, and for the Tampa Bay Rays, they did have Taj Juncal and Milton Bradley give up 5 unearned runs in this one, hurt by a trio of errors. One of them was his own, but from there, you had the bullpen do their part. Garrett Clevenger, along with Mason Montgomery, both give you a pair of outs out of the bullpen scoreless. Edwin Uceta, 5 outs out of the bullpen scoreless. Pete Fairbanks, he's able to go for a scoreless inning. Eric Orze was able to give you a scoreless inning as well. So these guys find a way to be able to persevere and get the job done, and also being able to persevere and get the job done. How about the San Francisco Giants? They go on the road, they take it to the LA Dodgers. This by kind of 6-2 as I'm doing this in the bottom of the 9th inning. So Dodgers might attack on a run or two, but Logan Webb, pretty rock solid in this one. He gives up just 2 runs over the course of his 7 innings of work, including home run to Teoscar Hernandez, 12th home run in the campaign, but Yoshinobu Yamamoto, this was not his night as he gives up 5 runs over the course of 4 2/3 innings, including a pair of bombs. Going deep for San Francisco, William Adames, 8th home run of the season, and his 3rd this week, so he's starting to really pick it up. Justin Robelski in long relief give one up to Austin Kenizer. That was home run number 1 of the campaign for him, and Casey Schmidt, He's able to go deep. That was home run number 2 of the campaign for him, also off of Yamamoto for Wrobelski. 4 1/3 innings, allows just as a home run, so did a nice job of being able to hold down the fort for the team. And you did have for the San Francisco Giants, the bullpen, do a solid job for them as well, as Tyler Rogers was able to give you a scoreless inning, and as of right now, Ryan Walker is coming in to close out that game. And then I do have to have this up by midnight Pacific, 3 o'clock a.m. Eastern, but that said, it looks like the Seattle Mariners should be able to get the job done here against the Cleveland Guardians. Hopefully, I'm not speaking out of turn here, but as of right now, this is a game that is 6-2 with the Seattle Mariners in the lead. As for Cleveland, Gavin Williams, not a lengthy start, but not a terrible one. 2 runs allowed over the course of 4 innings. Did allow a home run to Rowdy Tellez, 11th home run the campaign. From there, you did have Tim Herron give up 2 runs in his inning work. Hunter Gaddis, who's been rock solid this year, he gives up 2 runs. He was only able to go for a third of an inning. You did have Kobe Allard give you a pair of outs out of the bullpen scoreless, and Cade Smith a scoreless inning of his own, as you did have a pair of bombs in this one for Seattle, both off of Luis Castillo, as Nolan Jones, 3rd home run the campaign. Stephen Kwan is 6th, as Luis Castillo gives up those 2 solo home runs. He does so over the course of 6 innings of work. Carlos Vargas has given you a scoreless inning, and as of right now, we have Matt Brash currently in the game. He has already gotten out of the bullpen and entered in this game having not allowed a single earned run all season long. So he has been very, very much money for this team. And what else has been money has been taking a look at unders thus far this season in Major League Baseball. The under rate is currently at 53.2%, 528 unders, so 464 overs, and favorites on the money line hitting at about 57.9%, 595 and 432 on the money line. If you're taking a look at the last 7 days in Major League Baseball, favorites have been able to do a relatively solid job, as over the last 7 days, 54 and 33 on the money line. That's 62.1%, while the unders and overs are about as equal as they get, with 1 or 2 games pending on the board for Friday. Currently, the unders are having a very, very slim lead, 43 unders to 42 overs. So that's what we're seeing in Major League Baseball right now, and that's what we're seeing trend-wise in Major League Baseball. Coming up next, how about if we do take a look at the NL Central, what we're all seeing league-wide in baseball, and so much more with one of our good friends, and Ben Wilson, who does amazing work here at the network, and he joins me next right here on the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now of our VSIN Family Podcast.
For the ones who get it done, the most important part is the one you need now. And the best partner is the one who can deliver. That's why millions of maintenance and repair pros trust Grainger, because we have professional-grade supplies for every industry, even hard-to-find products. And we have same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders. But most importantly, we have an unwavering commitment to help keep you up and running. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball, this is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSIN Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by this man, as we've got Ben Wilson aboard. He does such tremendous work here at the network, taking a look at this great game that we all know and love of baseball, and he really becomes our utility man this time of year. You need him on some live betting shows, he's got you. If you need him a little bit more for some of the late night shows like Cashing Out, what have you, he's got you. He is a man that does a great job of being able to fill all the positions, and you're able to follow him on Twitter/X at the first name, Ben_Wilson, and then another underscore and the number 1. And on top of his work here at VSIN, does amazing work with his play-by-play work, whether that be indoor football, college baseball, college basketball, you name it, he does it. And Ben, it's great to get you aboard. Thank you.
Always appreciate it, sir. It's a great time of year, and a little double dipping for me because we've got the MLB as well as the college baseball. The World Series is now underway, so really fun time of the calendar, as much as we're kind of getting into that whole dog days of the season, but can't complain with where we're at right now.
No, we certainly cannot, as we do have ourselves a lot to take a look at in this great sport of baseball. And I know that we're both gentlemen from the great state of Wisconsin. And how do you take a look at this Milwaukee Brewers team right now? Because I think that it's fair to say it's been an up and down and inconsistent year, to say the least. Somehow, some way, they're above 500. And it's one of these cases where the pitching has been so interesting because they were number 1 in terms of bullpen ERA last year. We've seen a bit of a fall off. Now you've got Aaron Savali requesting a trade on his birthday, and you've got a whole bunch of young guys coming up from AAA Nashville.
It is really weird, and the part for me that's probably the most, not necessarily surprising, but just given where they were at. I think the last time we talked together on your show, and it was 2-3 weeks ago, how much of a mess the starting rotation had been in. But on the season, they're still top 5 in starting pitching ERA, which tells you a lot about how they've been able to kind of work through all those early issues. And the fact that, we have Jose Quintana going today back off the IL, I've really liked him. And just the consistency, the depth that he has given pretty much every time he's taken the ball, admittedly in a limited sample size. But yeah, the fact that there's so many options, I think what's nice is that you've got former starter options that you're now, usually due to injury here, you're putting out of the pen. And Aaron Ashby, DL Hall are the two guys that come to mind. They've been able to use DL Hall as a pretty effective bulk guy, either opening up or coming in after. I know they paired him up with Quinn Priester a couple times. It's sort of that resourcefulness that you come to expect from a franchise that never has been willing to spend a whole lot of money because they don't really have that much money to spend relative to the other teams. And this is just leaning into clearly a strength, which is, a bunch of arms who might not shatter the world's expectations and jump off the page as like an A-list sort of pitcher. But when you combine them all together, I think it's been pretty good. And my biggest thing with the pen has been the growth of Abner Uribe, who looks like a completely different guy than he did. He might as well have a completely different name on the back of his jersey because he looks night and day like he did in 2024. And that's going to be the thing that keeps him in it. You figure the hitting will kind of come and go. It seems like most of the guys in the lineup have been pretty streaky this year. But for a team that's right now caught 2.5 games outside the wild card positioning, this is a pretty massive stretch as much as it is mid-June because you go Cardinals, you go Cubs, and you go Twins, your next 3 series. I think it's easy to say, okay, you learn a lot when you face a couple good teams in a row. But given this retooling and all that, Greg, I'm curious to see how that holds up because I think a lot of people are skeptical that this is actually the 5th best starting rotation in baseball, but that's what the numbers so far say.
Yeah, I mean, it has been really interesting because there hasn't been as much, shall we say, consistency with regards to rotation. Jose Quintana has been injured and then not injured, and I still believe that he's doing for a little bit of regression personally. You've had Freddie Peralta, who has seen a massive dip with his strikeout numbers, but somehow, some way, the strand rate is there, and that is something that has had me a little bit concerned about the Brewers because I take a look at that starting pitching, what you mentioned, with them being top 5 in terms of ERA, and I just don't know if that's quite sustainable.
Sure thing. And it kind of also is in pair and in concert with the hitting where when they had the recent hot streak and they're winning all those games in a row, and yet they were bottom 5 in a lot of the hard hit barrel rate sort of advanced metrics that we as bettors look at every single day. So it's one of those things where they've been super streaky. Whenever it's gone really bad, it's never a case of it's as bad as it looks on paper. And I think you could say the opposite, which is happening right now. It's not really as good as some of the recent wins and all of that have looked. And Milwaukee just had a 3-game series against Atlanta, who's just been a dumpster fire all year. And, in that series, the Brewers, they made the Braves look like the potential World Series caliber team we all thought we were getting at the start of the year. I mean, Atlanta looked far and away in winning that series like the better team. And that's sort of the concern that you have is outside of a few spots here and there and catching teams at the wrong time. It's a 162-game season, and you're in a division. You're already got a 5-game hole to a Cubs team that seems really in a really good spot, and it's likely going to come down to one of the 3 wild card spots here, and that's with not only the NL East and the NL West is 2 divisions who have absolute elite teams at the top and are going to get at least one from their respective divisions in that that 3-slot mix. So you're looking at just math wise probably 5-6 teams for one spot, and you just can't be as inconsistent and up and down as they've been. So it's probably a team where you have to look kind of individual matchup wise and just to feel for how they're going is kind of a play on team in certain situations, but it's not like a group that I'd be looking to buy on long term.
Yep, I do think that it's going to be so interesting to take a look at this team moving forward, especially in an NL Central where, for the Pittsburgh Pirates, it's been rough, but I do feel like there's quite a bit of value with so many of these teams. As joining me on the show, we do have Ben Wilson, who does such amazing work here at VSiN, joining me on the Baseball Betting Show, and I think that's really interesting to take a look at the Cincinnati Reds in this division because they're another one of those teams where the starting pitching has actually been relatively solid. Nick Martinez has given you good starts. Andrew Abbott has looked like one of the best pitchers in all of baseball. He has been absolutely tremendous there. But that said, I take a look at that Reds offense and it's been touch and go as well. I think that they're one of those teams that they could be able to give you a little bit of sneaky value during the season, but there is a lot of inconsistency with them too.
Sure thing. It seems like they're probably due to win, have like a 10-win in 12-game stretch. And they'll get within a couple of the Cubs, and then you figure they'll give it all back. It's just sort of how they are. They kind of remind me, they're like the golfer who makes a ton of birdies, but then just can't play defense. Like just makes a ton of bogeys and a lot of just dumb mistakes. That's kind of the feel I have having watched a lot of Reds baseball this year. And Yeah, they're sitting there. I think you could kind of categorize them just like Milwaukee as probably maybe at times when they looked rough, like a vintage 80 to 81 win team, but you figure things will progress a little bit better. And this is probably going to be a team that peaks at about 85 wins, which for both Brewers and Reds, I don't know if that's going to be good enough to get a third wild card spot this year. I think the good thing, at least, is the hitting, was so bad. It was, bottom 5 across the board when we were talking, Greg, through April. And at least now you've seen that come back to where they aren't really a team that hits for average in general, but the fact you've got good speed and, Elly De La Cruz has been, it seems like playing less than 100%, hasn't really been running. But with the rest of that lineup, the fact that they're a top 10 stolen base team, the fact that they're at least able to, in bunches, put up some runs, even if it's not super consistent. It seems like when they're on, they're on. When they're off, it might be like getting a 3-hitter against them. At least for them, that puts them in a spot where, you have a little support on a starting rotation that, like you mentioned, has really been solid and consistent all year. So again, it's another situation where now that that's come around a little bit, I think the numbers are a little bit, a little more understandable and probably not as volatile that as far as not anticipating what's going to happen here going forward. But 35 and 34 right now is, we're recording here ahead of the weekend series. And again, they're taking on a Detroit team this weekend that's been playing as good as anybody. They get Minnesota, they go at St. Louis. So, this could look really good in a week. This could look like a team that's back to, 3-4 games below 500. And that's just kind of how you characterize the Reds.
Yep. And that's a lot of this division in general, because right now the Brewers are taking on the St. Louis Cardinals. And I'm not sure where you're at on the St. Louis Cardinals, but man, do they not have any power hitting whatsoever. Ryan Helsley has been really shaky as a closer, and yet somehow, someway, they're continuing to win games as well, and it just feels like that's this entire division in general. There's a lot of warts with some of these teams, but somehow, someway, they're finding ways to be able to get the job done.
It might be like 2050, and I think we'll still have some sort of Cardinal devil magic. It's just never going to go away. And look, 7 of the 9 guys in the main starting lineup are pretty much all homegrown. As much as they've, there was a thought with the Nolan Arenado trade, maybe they were going to start going away from that. But it's fascinating. They're not a team that really is willing to spend, but yeah, it's a lot of station to station sort of offense they rely on. And I think back to those kind of classic Cardinal devil magic teams. And we refer to that and we say teams that you and I, Greg, we watched and we're like, these teams aren't impressive whatsoever. Like, how are they winning every day? And yet, they'd hit like 300 with runners in scoring position. They'd just find ways. They'd always manufacture when it counted. And you get a little bit of a feel with them too. And the fact that they'll come out of that Milwaukee series, get the sad White Sox on the road, they'll get a Cincinnati team. I think they probably match up pretty well against, but just with the general matchup so far, we'll get kind of the top of their rotation coming back in for that series. So yeah, it seems like it's, I don't want to be lazy and say that's the Cardinals, is just, they're going to paper tiger their way to, the upper 80s and be right in the mix for a wild card and even maybe the division. It's still certainly not over by any means, but I can't help but think that when you think about, the starting pitching, they really don't generate a lot of swing and miss. They really have to rely on the defense. How much is that sustainable as the weather's now getting hot? And can you go a whole season just continuing to hit station for station, really not much power like you talk about in the current state of the MLB? That's just a couple of my concerns I have with them. Not like I'm looking to jump out in front and start fading the Cardinals every day, but you got to have that in the back of your mind going forward with them.
Yeah, with the St. Louis Cardinals, it is very much interesting with them. Like Eric Fetty, a guy that we saw on Friday, that's a guy that I feel like has very much overperformed. 5.7 strikeouts to 4 walks per 9 innings and a sub-360 ERA. That is really not sustainable. So I am right there with you. And then obviously we have to talk about the big bad wolf out there in the Central, as we do have Ben Wilson, who does great work here at VSIN, join me on the Baseball Betting Show, and that would be the Chicago Cubs, who we saw them on Friday take on Paul Skeens and company. And just how do you take a look at this Cubs bunch where the bullpen has actually been the best in terms of ERA over the last 35 days? I don't know where they have found Daniel Palencia and Drew Pomeranz to give them good innings, but they have been able to. This offense has been consistent all season long, but how do you take a look at a Cubs team where it does feel like the pitching's a little bit touch and go without Justin Seal, but they just continue to find ways to get good innings out of guys that you wouldn't expect?
Yeah, when's the last time the Cubs had a bullpen that you could even remotely trust? It's probably been since the World Series year, honestly. And they've had some good teams in that 9 year stretch since then, but if you were to tell me that Matthew Boyd, Colin Ray, Ben Brown sort of lead rotation would be not running away with the Central, but 5 games up as we're talking and in a really good shape, but with support of great offense, say, okay, that seems a little subpar. But yet, you look at the numbers and honestly, they've kind of matched what you would expect. It's a bottom half of the league rotation in most respects. The only thing they do well is they just they put balls in play. They don't give a lot of free bases, and I think they understand too that they'll get a good amount of run support every night. You don't need to be nibbling, getting your pitch counts up, and they just try to get deep into games and let the bullpen take over, which is a very anti-Cubs thing to talk about as far as a strategy compared to years past. But I've always liked Colin Ray too, going back to his time in Milwaukee. Not like the numbers were ever that good, but the guy who keeps the ball down, gets a lot of ground ball contact and soft contact, which is very important when you're talking about pitching in the summer at the friendly confines where the balls tend to fly out. Having said all that, you got to think there's at least one, if not two, decent sized moves coming here on the pitching front for the rotation. And I think the biggest change I think I've had on the Cubs from the preseason was I initially assumed they'd be going after lots of bullpen help. And now you look at it, they've done so much already. Basically, everybody is new this year, with the exception of Palencia, who was on the roster last year. So my only change as far as an outlook goes is that you got to think help is coming on the starting pitching side, especially with, we never know how hamstrings go, and that's what Shota Imanaga is dealing with. You had the Justin Steele surgery and all that, and Javier Assad hasn't even pitched at all for them. So that's where I look at the Cubs and go, there's the money, there's the investment relative to the division. That's going to probably come eventually, and it's why as much as people get excited with some of these Cardinals and Reds and even Brewers hot streaks and think, okay, there could be some long shots, I still, as much as it pains me to say it, end of the day, think the Cubs probably win this division. I'm still skeptical, though, once we get to the postseason, that they are going to be worth a bet in a series against the Mets or against the Dodgers.
Yep, I'm right there with you. And I think that that's a big key to be able to take a look at, because with the NL Central, there's a lot of solid teams, but I just don't know if they compare to the teams out west. And those teams out east as well. The Phillies, along with the New York Mets, have been rock solid as well. With the Atlanta Braves, I just don't know if we're going to be able to see them be able to rise up this year. Recognize that they had that series win over the Milwaukee Brewers, but still have all sorts of question marks there. But I take a look at the teams out east and the teams out west, and it just feels like they're still a little bit head and shoulders above what we're getting out of the teams like the Chicago Cubs and Milwaukee Brewers and company.
Sure thing. And even a team like the Padres, who've had really bad numbers, against the good teams, the above 500 teams, and just lost a series to the Dodgers. And now they'll go to Arizona and they get the Dodgers again next week. Like even a team like that, I've watched them a couple times in person this year, and they still, they check off pretty much every box for you. Like you figure with how good the arms are and the bullpen, like they're gonna be fine. And you think with the offense too, like it's only a matter of time. You watch them and you're like, this is not a bottom 5 power offense in the game. It's not a bottom 10 OPS offense in the game when you think about the names that they have. And they've been pretty healthy. It's just there has not been the production yet. So that's a team still that I'm a believer that as the season goes on, you'll see that kind of that for the most part of October form that we saw last year until they couldn't close the deal against the Dodgers. But that's where you look at it and you go, okay, if they're not at their worst, but if the Padres are hitting about as poorly as you would expect for that kind of roster, and they're still 9 games over 500 right in the mix in the West, you got to think that that'll be a good value play, whether it's make the postseason if you see a number dip on them at all, or to come out through the wild card rounds and be really live in some of those series as a dog.
Yep, I'm right there with you. And I do think that we've got ourselves an interesting landscape here in baseball. And I want to open it up a little bit because we have talked about a lot of the NL Central and a lot of the National League teams in general. Is there maybe a particular pitcher or two or a particular team or two that right now, as the summer months are coming upon us, that you're looking to bet a little bit more and you're just finding a little bit of general value on?
Yeah, well, it's nice that he had a couple rough starts, because I love to buy low on guys that I've been high on. And for me, Jesus Luzardo has been the one guy that kind of fits that mold of, I'm expecting, as long as the health is there, and it's been there for Philadelphia. And again, kind of a classic team where as soon as they have any sort of dip, and they had that really awful stretch where they got killed by the Brewers at home and didn't really even look competitive in those games, just looked rough in general. And, and that very quickly, I mean, that's how good the Mets are playing. You have one bad week and you're 5-6 games back in the division. But I am still pretty high on the Phillies. It's a top 10 offense, and specifically with a guy like Luzardo, and he'll get his next start next week against his former team in Miami. That's certainly a pitcher and he did bounce back. He looked really good against the Cubs, but you're talking 4.23 ERA. I'm just pulling up his advanced numbers right now, Greg. Fielding independent pitching at 2.66. So, and I didn't even look at this until we just started talking about it. I'd felt like from watching him, this was a great bet-on guy. And the numbers, as I'm looking, even more than I would have thought, corroborate that. A 376 batting average on balls in play. That is not likely to continue. So, guy's been really good with the swing and miss stuff, over 10 strikeouts per 9. Really like him in the short term going forward. And you try to just, juice that orange as long as you can. I don't know if he'll last a full 30 starts in the regular season, but everything they're doing with his management outside of really 2 bad starts has been very, very impressive. And those numbers really just reflect a couple minor blips on the radar and not, mediocrity, which if you look at a 4.23 ERA, sometimes you might think, but not the case with Jesus. I'll be betting on him here in the weeks to come.
Oh, I'm right there with you. I just feel like that was just an outlier of a last 2 performances because his first 11 starts, he was looking like a borderline Cy Young candidate, had a 2.10 ERA, 3 runs or fewer in 11 straight starts. And those 2 starts were absolutely awful, but you can't overlook the fact that he had 11 straight starts where he looked so rock solid, the strikeout numbers were there, and there wasn't a velocity dip as well. So right there with you, Ben. And Ben, I know you're doing such an amazing job taking a look at this great game of baseball. You're doing so many different things over here at VSIN, including some college baseball as well. So love to get people at home know it's on tap for you. I know people can follow along on social media and other platforms.
Yep, at Ben_Wilson_1, doing a lot of college baseball specific spots right now on a lot of different places, hosting shows related to that. And we've got a whole nother week of it going on in Omaha. So a lot of fun times with that. And then the draft will be upon us very shortly thereafter.
Absolutely. And it is stunning that we've got Murray State out there in the College Baseball World Series. And that's what it's all about. You get some of these Cinderella teams. For those that love the NCAA tournament, the College Baseball World Series provides a little bit of that fun and frivolity as well. And Ben, he does such an amazing job taking a look at this wonderful sport. So big thanks to Ben for joining me on the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. And coming up next, it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Saturday as we touch them all.
If your job at a healthcare facility includes disinfecting against viruses, you know prevention is the best medicine, and maintaining healthy spaces starts with a healthy cleaning routine. Grainger's world-class supply chain helps ensure you have the quality products you need when you need them, from disinfectants and cleaning supplies to personal protective equipment, so you can help deliver a clean bill of health. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball, this is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by Ben Wilson. He does such an amazing job taking a look at this great game of baseball that we all know and love. Really everything here at VSiN he does a great job with. Our live betting shows, taking a look at some baseball. I know he's done some tennis play-by-play in the past as well. Does a great job there, and every single time he joins me, lends amazing insight. So big thanks to Ben for joining me in the last segment. Now it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Saturday as we touch them all.
If a game is listed on the betting board, Greg has a side and a total on it, so it is time to touch them all.
Do note that as per usual, any changes that are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter/X feed at @GUnit_81, and we are going to be going in Las Vegas rotation order. This is where we go with the National League games first, then the American League games, any Inter-League games. Those are going to be at the bottom. That'll keep things all nice, neat, clean, and easy. So, without further ado, let's dive in on this first game. It is 9:51, 9:52 on the card. You've got the Chicago Cubs, and they're going to be playing the Pittsburgh Pirates as Mike Burrows is on the bump for the Pirates, and you got old Matthew Boyd on the bump for the Cubs. Now, the total is off the board. This is a Wrigley Field game that is going to be based on the win, but we do have money lines. The Cubs between -208 to a -225, +184 to a +187 is that number on Pittsburgh. I'm willing to go up to a -238 on the Cubs money line. I'll be willing to lay up to a -123 on that run line. You don't have a run line without totals, so we currently don't have any of those up on the board. That That said, I certainly do think that I'm going to be able to get a minus 120 or better, and that'll land me there. And for this total, I did some I told to where a 7.5 or less I'm going to be in on the over, and 8 or higher to the under, because you've got winds blowing in most likely at north of 10 miles per hour. So you do have some not so great hitting conditions out there, but you do have a team that has been hitting all season long in the Chicago Cubs. Right now, they and the LA Dodgers are right there at the top of the big leagues in terms of runs per game. 5 different guys on this Cubs team with at least 11 home runs this season. Kyle Tucker, Pete Armstrong, C.A. Suzuki, Michael Busch, Stacey Swanson, and then the guys around him, like even the catchers, Reese McGuire, along with Carson Kelly. These guys are giving you north of a 270 average. Ian Happ is doing a nice job, move line, 345 on base. Nico Horner sitting at 285, and this Pittsburgh Pirates team just really doesn't compare. For the Pittsburgh Pirates, they are second worst in the big leagues in terms of runs per game with fewer than 3.4 runs per contest. You've only got 3 guys on the roster with north of 5 home runs. Brian Reynolds, Oniel Cruz, and Andrew McCutchen. And to the credit of McCutchen along Cruz, both of these guys about a 350 or so on base. You do have Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, who I don't know why they have him batting ninth, but he's been able to about a 290. The issue for this team is these guys like Alexander Canario, Jared Trollo, Spencer Horowitz, Henry Davis. These guys at the bottom that are hitting below a 215, really not giving you a lot of power. And for the Pittsburgh Pirates, they did only get 5 innings out of Paul Skeens yesterday. I thought that he was going to be able to give a little bit more, so they did have to use up the likes of Dennis Santana, Caleb Ferguson, 2 of their better bullpen pieces out there, and now you've got yourself a little bit of a sticky situation where you've got someone like a Ryan Baruchi who's posting up nearly a 5 ERA. Jay Shogurt hasn't been the world's worst this season with a 3.08 ERA, but I don't have a lot of confidence in him. And then you've had just ups and downs in general with regards to long guys. And then for the Chicago Cubs, going into yesterday, over the last 35 days, a sub-135 bullpen ERA, number 1 in the big leagues with the likes of Brad Keller, Daniel Palencia, Drew Pomerantz, all being able to give you a sub-250 ERA. Ryan Presley has been very shaky thus far this season, but has looked better recently, so we'll give a little bit of credit where it is due. I do think that for Matthew Boyd, he's going to be able to go out there and just completely shut things down. He has been very rock solid all season long, as he's right now supplying a 2.89 ERA. His strikeouts per 9 rate down a little bit from his career numbers. He's been giving you about 8.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, but doing a pretty exceptional job keeping the ball in the yard. He's given up just under 1 home run per 9 innings, and he's been able to reduce on the walks as well. He always had a little bit of a issue when he was with the Detroit Tigers in terms of getting into long pitch counts, only 2.2 walks per 9 innings. And then for Mr. Burrows, I do think that he's going to be coming into his own. He looked very good at the minor league level. Took him a few starts to be able to find his footing here at the big leagues, and he's still been able to give you some good strikeout numbers. His strikeouts per 9 rate is north of 8.5. The big thing is he does need to just hone in on not giving up as much hard contact. 4 home runs allowed over the course of 18 innings. That's been rough, but last 2 starts, albeit they were at home against the Houston Astros and the Miami Marlins, a combined 9 2/3 innings, allowing 2 runs. So it does appear as though he's starting to be able to hone in there, but that said, this is a Pirates team that doesn't back him up very well, so minus 123 or better, looking at the Cubs run line, plus 239 or higher, going to be looking at the Pirates on the money line, and we're not going to get there. So with that, I also do take a look at this total with a 7.5 or less to the over and an 8 or higher to the under. 953, 954 on the betting board. The Miami Marlins are on the road. They're facing off against the Washington Nationals. We do know that Trevor Williams is going to be on the bump for the Nationals, and right now it is all to be determined who's going to be on the bump for the Miami Marlins. This is a game that is presently off the board, and when I was checking out CBS Sports to do my projections, they were posting up the fact that you might be getting Valentin Beloso for the start here, and that pretty much signifies a bullpen game. And if you do get Mr. Beloso, who I think that he would probably pitch like a bozo in this one, I'd be willing to lay up to a minus 152 with regards to National setup at a minus 153. And then I did set my total to where a 9 or less I'm going to be in on the over 9.5 higher. The under would need at least plus 154 to take a shot on the Miami Marlins. It has been a pretty miserable year for Trevor Williams, to say the least. I do think that there's a little bit of positivity doing for him. He does sort of a strange way of being able to get a bit of deception, despite the fact that he doesn't necessarily have a fastball that's going to blow you away. 591 ERA, but a 4.01 fielding dependent, 1.1 home runs, 2.3 walks allowed per 9 innings. He's only getting about 7 strikeouts per 9 innings, but I do think that things are going to get better for him, and they have been in 3 out of his last 5 starts, 3 earned runs or fewer allowed after he was on just a really, really miserable run. And then for Beloso, yeah, this has been not so tremendous, to say the least. He does have a 3.41 ERA, but he's got a fielding dependent of a 4.36, 7.3 strikeouts, 3.7 walks per 9 innings. I really have my question marks with him. Last year, when he was getting a few starts for this Marlins team, he was posting up a 3.67 ERA, .573 fielding independent. Like, this guy is way overdue for a regression, and you've got a Washington Nationals team that I recognize that they aren't lighting the world on fire in terms of offense, but you still have some pretty, shall we say, formidable bats. James Wood has been giving you good wood, 375 on base. He's up to 16 home runs this season. Alex Call is moving the line. He's giving you about a 370 on base. CJ Abrams, Nathaniel Lowe, 9 home runs apiece, along Josh Bell. Now, Bell and Lowe not necessarily for the world's greatest amount of average. CJ Abrams ain't more like a 265, but you've got other guys like Akiba Ruiz, who's been a little bit rough recently. He and Jose Tena both hitting between about a 245 to a 250, and then on the flip side for the Miami Marlins, other than Kyle Stowers, just not a lot of power in this lineup. Stowers north of a 335 on base, 10 home runs this season, but then you just take a look up and down the boulevard, and you got guys that are able to get on base. Even someone like an Eric Wagman who's able to hit for about a 250. You've been able to have Xavier Edwards who hits for no power whatsoever, but he does a nice job being able to give you darn near a 350 on base. Augustin Ramirez is up to 8 home runs, but we have really seen him fall off the table a little bit with regards to his overall batting average as well. Dave Myers is hitting a 300, but hasn't quite been the same since he's come off the injury list, and you do have 2 really terrible bullpens in this game. For the Miami Marlins, they currently are rocking a bullpen ERA that is in the bottom 8 in the big leagues. Calvin Fauché has been posting up north of a 4 ERA along Tyler Phillips. Anthony Bender has actually been rock solid. He's been able to give you a sub-2 ERA, and Ronnie Enriquez give you a little bit of a long guy for the team, but Jesus Sunoco and company just not great. And then for the Washington Nationals, dead last in the National League in terms of their bullpen ERA. We've actually had Kyle Finnegan, Lon Cole Henry be able to supply you with a sub-3 ERA, but when you get into Jackson Rutledge, Jose Ferrer, these are 2 guys that are hovering more closer to about a 5 ERA. Eduardo Salazar is posting up north of a 7 ERA. Just have a lot of untrustworthy guys. Zach Brzezinski is right around about a 5 ERA. Brad Lord, since going back to the bullpen, has actually been relatively okay, but I do take a look at the circumstance, and I do think that you're going to get quite a bit of run scoring from a pair of teams that have been a little bit hit or miss with that regard. 9 or less, I'm looking at the over. 9.5 or higher, the under, with the Nationals willing to lay up to a minus 152 on that money line, plus 154 or higher, looking at the Marlins. 955, 956 on the card. You've got the Milwaukee Brewers playing host to the St. Louis Cardinals. Andre 3000 Palante is on the bump for St. Louis, and you've got Mr. Jose Quintana on the bump for the Brewers, and the Brewers are a favorite of anywhere between minus 117 to minus 125, anywhere between plus 105 to plus 110 is that number on St. Louis, with 8.5 being the total. Seeing an 8 out there as well. On the 8, over is minus 115, the under is minus 105. On the 8.5, under is between minus 120 to minus 125. The over is anywhere between even and minus 105, and I did make my total at 8.8. I'm going to be taking a look at the over. I do think that you've got a pair of pitchers that are very much due for quite a bit of regression. For Jose Quintana, he's only giving up 1 home run per 9 innings, so he's been able to keep the ball in the yard, but that said, he's been only getting about 6.3 strikeouts at 3.7 walks per 9 innings, has really weaseled himself out of some situations. 2.66 ERA, 4.37 fielding independent, and then Andre 3000 Palante, 4.75 ERA, 5.9 strikeouts allowed per 9 innings. He's giving up 1.4 bombs per 9 as well. His walks issues has been a little bit better recently, but still leaving a lot to be desired here. And you do have a pair of bullpens there in the bottom half of the big leagues in terms of ERA for the St. Louis Cardinals, hovering more around about 18th in terms of bullpen ERAs. Ryan Helsley, who I believe is still one of the better closers in the big leagues, he has just struggled mightily this season. He has blown 5 saves. It has not been great, to say the least. You do have the likes of Kyle Leahy, Phil Matone, though, have been able to pick it up in the bullpen. These are 2 guys that have been able to give you a sub-250 ERA. You've got Steven Madsen, a long roll, has actually been really good. And Jojo Romero, not been bad himself in this bullpen. He's been rocking about a 3.15 ERA. Now, you do have a pair of teams that they don't necessarily supply as much power as what you'd like as for the Cardinals entering into Friday. 3 different guys with 8 home runs to lead the way. Wilson Contreras, Nolan Arenado, and Lars Nootbaar. And then with regards to Contreras and Nootbaar, both about a 3.35 on base. Arenado only getting a 2.43. You expect a little bit more there. Now, Alec Burleson is moving line, hitting about a 2.90. Ivan Herrera, 7 home runs at a small 130 at-bat sample size. He's hitting above a 300. So you've had the catcher spot really come up big for the team. And for the Milwaukee Brewers, they generate a lot of their offense via small balls. You've got a quartet of different guys that have been able to give you at least 10 stolen bases as far this season, as you've got Bryce Terang along with Sal Frelick, Jackson Chourio, and Christian Yelich. And for Yelich, 13 home runs this season, but very touch and go with regards to the bat. He has been a guy that has really been, shall we say, dictating how the Brewers go. When he's hot, the team is hot. When he's cold, the team is cold. You've got Rhys Hoskins up to 10 home runs, about a 3.45 on base, and then you've been able to have Sal Frelick give you a 3.55 on base. He's been rock solid as well. Jackson Chourio really doesn't draw a lot of walks, but You do have Isaac Michael Collins, who's out there in the infield doing a little bit better job for the team, giving north of 350 on base, even though the batting average is not there as Caleb Durbin, along with Joey Ortiz, need to pick it up a little bit. And for the Brewers, it does feel like this bullpen is very much improving. Yo Payams, Elvis Figueroa were just abject disasters for this bullpen to begin the season. Like, Payams is right now at the minor league level. It's gotten that bad for him. But that said, you've got Abner Uribe, who's been able to mix and match for the team. He's been able to give you a sub-2 ERA. You've got Nick Mears, who's been giving you a sub-2 30 ERA. You've been able to get some good innings as well. Trevor McGill. So I do think that for the Brewers, it is going to be enough for them to be able to get the job done against a guy in Palante that gives up a lot of contact, gives up a lot of hard contact, and there's just not much to love here. I did set my run total at an 8.8, so I do like the over, and I'm willing to lay up to a minus 135 on the Spurs money line. 957, 958 on the betting board. The Colorado Rockies are on the road against the Atlanta Braves. Spencer Strider is on the bump for the Braves, and Jace Dollander is on the bump for the Rockies, and the Rockies are a Rocky-sized underdog. Probably not enough of an underdog, I guess. Right now you're finding them anywhere between plus 260 to plus 270, minus $3, minus 335 is that number on Atlanta 9 is the total. The under is minus 115, and the over is minus 105, and if you're looking to lay a run half right now with the Atlanta Braves, now keep in mind that this is a FanDuel opener, and typically with regards to FanDuel openers, yeah, you're not going to get the best of the number. I'm seeing this at a minus 152. Sign me up there. I was willing to go up to a minus 193 with regards to this run line. This Colorado Rockies team has lost more games by multiple runs than any other National League team has lost games in total, so that's been rough. Now, I will say this, for Chase Dollander, he's actually been much better on the road than he has been at home thus far this season. Right now, rocking a really ugly 6.85 ERA. He's giving up north of 2 home runs per 9 innings, but you take a look at what he's done on the road. 4.50 ERA with 1.5 home runs per 9 innings. Is it great? No, but at the same time, it's respectable, and when he's at home, he's giving up 3.5 home runs per 9 innings. He is posting up an ERA that is well north of a 7, so has been less than tremendous, to say the least. And on the flip side, you do have an Atlanta Braves team that has a guy in Spencer Strider who's really been struggling all season long. 5.40 ERA, and he's built on power, and he's built on being able to get strikeouts. He's down to about 8.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, which for a lot of pitchers, that's just fine. But for Spencer Strider, when he's used to getting north of 12 strikeouts per 9 innings, that really does affect him. But here's the good news for him. You get to face off against Colorado Rockies team that's averaging 2.5 runs per game. That is dead last out there in the big leagues. They have just been able to get nothing going whatsoever. Even with Orlando Arcia going back in the fold, even with being able to get out there with Thairo Estrada, these are not guys that are doing a whole heck of a lot for this team. And when that's your saving grace for this roster, man, that's how you know that this team is just completely miserable. You have had Hunter Goodman actually hit 8 home runs on the road this far this season, so a little bit of credit where it's due there, but just so many guys in this lineup, like Brenton Doyle, Ryan McMahon, Michael Taglia, who I'm pretty sure is now at the minor league level, Kyle Farmer hitting at 225 or lower thus far this season, and that's both at home and on the road. If you just take a look at the road numbers and the road numbers only, you've got so many of these guys like McMahon, who I mentioned a little bit before, RCO they picked up, Sean Borchard, you go down the list of guys hitting below 200, and it's rampant. And on the flip side, for the Atlanta Braves, even though this team has been in the bottom half in terms of runs per game in baseball this season, you know Ronald Acuna Jr. is really picking it up. 6 home runs in his first 18 games of the season with north of a 400 on base. Austin Riley, Marcell Ozuna, a combined 21 home runs between the two of them, and Ozuna has been giving you darn near 400 on base. Need a bit more out of Michael Harris, Ozzie Albies, a combined 11 home runs, and both hitting 233 entering into the day on Friday. That's a little bit rough, but you have been able to get Matt Olson going for 14 home runs. Not hitting for a great average, but still 345 on base. Drake Baldwin is giving you 345 on base, and for the Braves, it certainly has been a rough bullpen. They had to go to Craig Kimbrell for 24 hours, so that was a little bit less than tremendous, to say the least. But if you look at them overall for the season, about 15th in the big leagues in terms of bullpen area. Having Desmond Hernandez on the injured list hurts him, and Horacio Iglesias has hurt them more than anything else, as he has been just absolutely terrible this far this season. But still have quite a few guys going out there holding down the fort, as Dylan Lee has been able to give you a sub-3 ERA. Angel De Los Santos has actually been rock solid along there, and Bummer. Both of these guys have 3 ERA or better. You've been able to get a few good mix and match innings out of someone like Dylan Dodd as well. And then on the flip side for the Colorado Rockies, this is a bullpen that is not dead last in the big leagues in terms of ERA, which is something that they're not dead last in. And you've had a few guys be able to step up, like Jake Bird, Zach Ognos. These guys have been able to give you a sub-4 ERA. You've had Ryan Rolson give you a few okay innings as well, but still, when you go to some of these guys, like they've had Scott Alexander, Verlander out there really blowing, and Ognos was rock solid to begin the season. He's starting to go down the toilet bowl as well. This is just not a place where you want to be. I just don't think that the Rockies give you much offense in this game, so I did set my total at an 8.2. I do like the under, and for the Braves, we'll go to minus 193 on that run line. 959, 960 on the betting board. The San Diego Padres are on the road against the Arizona Diamondbacks. Zach Gallen looks to fill it up for the Saints, and you've got Ryan Burgent, who's on the bump for the Padres. Padres are between plus 120 to plus 125 underdogs, anywhere between minus 140 to a minus 150. That number on the Diamondbacks also seeing a plus 130 out there for San Diego as well. 9.5 is the total, under is minus 120, and the over is even. If we can get up to a plus 134, I would be willing to take a shot on the San Diego Padres on the money line. Now, if you're looking to lay a run half with the Arizona Diamondbacks, once again, opening number over at FanDuel, so only subject to change, find that at a plus 138. If we could get more like a plus 148, I'd be willing to dive in there. I'm thinking that my best bet is probably going to be on the San Diego Padres when it's all said and done on the money line, as Zach Gallen just has not been great this season. Coming off of a little bit of a better start, but still, he is rocking north of a 4.6 ERA. He has been not himself in terms of the strikeout numbers, as that's been down. He's been only getting about 8.4 strikeouts per 9 innings, career 9.6 strikeouts per 9 innings, 4 walks per 9 innings. That is really creeping up there. 1.6 home runs allowed per 9. 5.15 ERA and a 4.89 fielding opinion. It used to be where Zach Gallen would always be a little bit rough on the road, but you knew that he would get the job done at home. This year he's actually been worse at home with a 6.38 ERA compared to a 3.79 ERA on the road. And then for Burgent, it's only been a few starts for him, but he's been rock solid for the San Diego Padres team. He saw a few long relief appearances before he went into a starter's role in his 2 starts against the Brewers and the Giants, both on the road, 10 1/3 innings, allowing 2 runs. Now, not getting a lot of swings and misses. He has given up 6 walks and has only gotten 6 strikeouts in those 2 starts, so regression is going to be coming for him. 4.33 fielding dependent to his 1.26 ERA. When your fielding dependent is more than triple your ERA, that's probably a little bit of an indicator that you're pitching above your skis, but I mean, that's it for the Padres. This has been a top 5 team with regards to bullpen ERA. You've got Jason Adam, who's still rocking a sub-2 ERA. Robert Suarez has been one of the best closers out there in all of baseball. You've got these guys who are able to mix and match with like Jeremiah Estrada, Adrian Morejon, Yuki Matsui, all being able to give you a sub-3.30 ERA. Sean Reynolds has actually been able to give you a few okay innings as well. And for the Padres, this has actually been a pretty pedestrian lineup, right around about league average in terms of runs per game. Trio of guys, Manny Machado, Fernando Tatis Jr., and also Gavin Sheets with a double-figure amount of homers for Sheets and Tatis Jr., hitting between about 250 to 260. And for Machado, it's taken him a little bit of time to find that power, but hitting a 320 overall this season. Now, they've been mixing and matching in the outfield with the likes of Jason Hayward, who's been in and out of the lineup, Brandon Lockridge, Tyler Wade, really not giving you a whole heck of a lot there. Jackson Merrill coming back, not giving you a ton of power, but giving you north of a 300 average, has been big. And Xander Bogaerts has been an albatross of a contract, hitting a 240 with 3 home runs. And Luis Arias, down below 300 average. You expect that to rebound a little bit. And for Arizona, this team continues to be in the top 6 in the big leagues in terms of runs per game. You've been able to have 2 guys just really slug their way to victory, and Corbin Carroll along with Eugenio Suarez. 19 home runs apiece out of both of those guys. Corbin Carroll giving you about a 340 on base. And the flip side for Eugenio Suarez, not hitting for a lot of average at about 233, but Josh Naylor has been able to hit above a 300. You've got the likes of Gabriel Moreno, Pavin Smith, Alex Thomas, all being able to hit between about a 270 to a 280. And the case of Thomas, not necessarily a lot of power, and I think I called him Alex instead of Alec, but that said, you've got Pavin Smith, who's been able to give you north of a 390 on base. And Ketel Marte of Marte Parte, 12 home runs in his first 148 at-bats, north of a 400 base. Do like what I'm seeing there. Do not like what I'm seeing on this Diamondbacks bullpen, which is in the bottom 5 of the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. They get back Kendall Graveman just to put him back on the injured list after he was all sorts of ineffective. Bryce Jarvis is back in the bullpen now. He's rocking north of a 6 ERA. Juan Murillo has been giving you a 5 ERA. Without AJ Puck, this team has just been very lost in the sauce. Jalen Beeks has given you about a 3 ERA and a little bit of a long roll. And Shelby Miller has been really good in the bullpen, but that's it. Not necessarily a whole heck of a lot here. And for the San Diego Padres, if I'm able to get a plus 134, I'm going to be firing it on that money line. I do think the Burgeon continues to do a rock solid job along that bullpen, and I do think that there's a little bit of positivity to it for Zach Gallen as well. So my total 9.2, so at the 9.5, I like the under. 961, 962 on the card. The Los Angeles Dodgers playoffs to the San Francisco Giants. Landon Roop is on the bump for the Giants, and Clayton Kershaw goes for the Dodgers. Dodgers are between a minus 168 to a minus 182 favorites. They're between plus 148 to a plus 158 is that number on San Francisco. 9 is the total. Over is minus 115, and the under is minus 105. I set the Dodgers at a minus 140, being able to get the plus 150. I'm going to be willing to take a shot on the San Francisco Giants, as Landon Roop has been really good for this bunch, and he is backed up by a bullpen that's number one in the big leagues in terms of ERA. We'll get into that in a second, but that's it for Landon Roop. He has given up 4 earned runs, I believe now 7 in total, as there's been a few unearned runs that he's been given up, but still, that's over the course of his last 5 starts. He has been really rock solid here. 3.29 ERA, 3.47 fielding independent, doing a nice job making sure that the deep ball is not surrendered. 0.8 home runs allowed per 9 innings, 8.3 strikeouts per 9 innings. He has given up a little bit over 3 walks per 9, and he does have to face off against a Death Star of a LA Dodgers lineup that has been so rock solid all season long. Shohei Ohtani just continued to do Shohei Ohtani things. He's been able to give you 22 plus home runs. He's giving you north of a 380 on base. You know exactly what you're going to be able to get there. Teoscar Hernandez has been up to 11 home runs. He's been doing a nice job, not necessarily hitting the deep ball, but just being able to supply you with RBI. 47 going into the day on Friday. Andy Paz is coming off of a really nice month of May, and he's been able to give you 12 home runs, hitting at 285. Freddie Freeman, Will Smith getting jiggy with it, north of a 400 on base out of both of those guys. And Max Muncy, after a relatively rough start to the season, all of a sudden he's been able to find it a little bit more as well. As for Max Muncy, you take a look at what he's been able to do over the last, we're going to call it about 20 or so games. He's been able to darn near 300 with a 400 on base, 8 home runs in the last 30 days. So he's been able to find it while Michael Conforto just sits on. The issue that you do have with the LA Dodgers is this bullpen, though. They're right around about league average with regards to bullpenning, right? And reinforcements are on the way. They've got Kirby Yates along with Michael Kopech back after these guys were on the injured list, but you're still dealing with the likes of Blake Trine and company being out of the fold. Ben Casparis, it looks like, is probably going to be seeing some more starts moving forward, so that takes him out. Jack Dreyer has been a nice long guy, giving you a sub-3 ERA. You've had Lou Trevino actually give you some halfway decent innings. I don't know how long-lasting that's going to be, but Anthony Banda, Yates, who I mentioned before, Tanner Scott, a lot of guys out there giving you north of a 3.7 ERA. And for the San Francisco Giants, again, number one team in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. All these guys are coming out there and just doing their part with the likes of Randy Rodriguez, Tristan Beck, Emilio Duvall, Eric Miller, Tyler Rogers, all give you a sub-275 ERA. And for the Giants, it has been a little bit touch and go in terms of this lineup. You've got Matt Chapman, who's giving you 12 home runs, but he's been banged up over the last week or so. We've seen him be out of the lineup, and instead you've got Casey Schmidt, who had a really bad error to cost you. That game on Thursday against the Colorado Rockies. Eloy Ramos, along with Wilmer Flores, 11 home runs apiece, and with Ramos, he's been able to give you a 295 average. You've had Flores be able to give you closer about a 260. Jungle Lee, not aiming for a ton of power, but he's moving the line, aiming at 275. You do need these guys at the bottom of the lineup, the likes of Luis Matos, Patrick Bailey, Lamont Wade Jr., hitting below the middle sign 200 to be able to pick it up a little bit, and would like to see a bit more power out of Tyler Fitzgerald. Just 2 home runs this season, but he's starting to give you a little bit more on base. I do think that in the end, with the Giants having the bullpen that they do, I think that it's going to be able to overpower the Dodgers a little bit more, especially with Clayton Kershaw just still not being the guy that we once saw. Now, I mean, for Clayton Kershaw, last few starts have been rock solid. That first start against the LA Angels, he gave up 4+ runs. He was clearly not himself, and he's needed to sort out sort of the rust for him, but I mean, still, 4.35 ERA. Overall for the season, he's been only giving you about 6.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, and he has given up right around about 4 walks per 9 innings. Once again, a little bit better in his last start against the St. Louis Cardinals. 7 punch-outs, no walks in that start, but I mean, prior to that, he had 3 strikeouts or fewer in each out of his previous 4 starts. So I do have my question marks here, and I'm going to be willing to take a shot on the Giants on the money line with those question marks. And with this total, I did set my total at 9.1. I'm going to be in on the over as well. As we go to 963, 964 on the betting board, the Baltimore Orioles are going to be playing against the LA Angels, as Tyler Anderson is on the bump for the Halos, and Tomoyuki Sugano is on the bump for the Orioles. Mostly seeing 9s with regards to this total, but it's very, very heavily juiced up. The over is anywhere between minus 125 to a minus 130. Under is between plus 105 to a plus 110. Seeing a straight 9.5 out there. That under is minus 115, and the over is minus 105 for the Orioles. Pretty good size favorite here. Anywhere between minus 155 to a minus 164. Between plus 134 to a plus 141. That number on the Angels, and we're going to be willing to take a shot on the Halos. I did set them at a plus 131. Now, I am not a stand for Tyler Anderson whatsoever. Tyler Anderson is a guy that has been as lucky gets. I have no idea how he gets out of so many of these jams. Right now, he is rocking an ERA that is a 3.99, and he has started to see a bit of regression. He has now given up at least 3 runs in 4 of his last 5 starts. It's probably not enough, though. 478 fielding independent, 7.3 strikeouts at 3.5 walks per 9 innings, 1.4 home runs per 9 innings. This guy just avoids danger after danger after danger. I have no idea how he does it, but somehow, some way he does. He's always got a relatively rock solid just batting average on balls in play that has gone up a little bit more this year, but still at 258. That's way below average. And then on the flip side, you've got a guy in Sugano who's not giving you any sort of swings and misses whatsoever for Mr. Sugano. Right now, rocking a 3.23 ERA, but 4.59 fielding dependent, 5 strikeouts per 9 innings. He only gives up 1.4 walks per 9 innings, so the command is good, but he's also giving up 1.4 home runs per 9 innings. A fielding independent that's more than 1.3 points higher than his ERA. And for this Baltimore Orioles bullpen, it's not like they have been stellar by any stretch of the imagination this year. You do have Felix Bautista, who's been rounding back in the form. He's been able to give you a sub-375 ERA. And Keegan Aiken, who served as an opener for the team about 48 or so hours ago, he's been rock solid as well. But then you take a look at these guys that they're trying to mix and match with in the bullpen, and it's not great. Cionel Perez, who's been dealing with injury the last few weeks, posting up north of an 8 ERA. And then you got Seranthony Dominguez, Matt Bowman, Yunier Cano, all posting up north of a 4 ERA as well. So these guys have been very much less than savory. And it's not like this is some sort of an Orioles team that's been amazing at the plate. They're averaging about 3.8 runs per contest. That is in the bottom 8 in the big league. Cedric Mullins has been your top home run hitter, giving you 10 home runs just out coming off the injury list, but he hasn't been able to hit for a lot of average since the first few weeks of the season. Gunnar Anderson, Jackson Holiday, they're starting to move the line, both hitting above a 270 with 8 home runs apiece. Ryan O'Hearn just below 400 on base. He's up to 9 home runs himself, but as Sakir said, is hitting below the Mendoza 200. Jordan Westberg, just coming off the injury list, is starting to hit a little bit more. He's gotten 6 home runs in his first 100 at-bats, but still have some question marks there. Dylan Carlson has not been great. Ore Mateo, when he's gotten at-bats, he's been awful. Colton Cowser has been awful. And on the flip side, you've got an LA Angels team that they're hitting for no sort of average whatsoever. This team is in the bottom 5 in the big leagues in terms of overall batting average, but boy oh boy are they hitting for power. Top 3 team in the big leagues in terms of home runs on a per at-bat basis. Taylor Ward, 260 on base, but 18 home runs. Logan Oppie, 268 on base, 14 home runs. Joe Adell, 296 on base, 13 home runs. Mike Trout even, hitting a 223 but 10 home runs. Zach Neto has been the lone guy that's moved the line, hitting for a 283, 20 on base, 10 home runs as far this season. Right, Soler, 8 bombs, 290 on base. So, I mean, this is very much an all or nothing team. You've got Nolan Schunel be able to give you a 380 on base, and Yohan Moncada, when he's been out there, has actually been able to get on base, but he's been in and out of the lineup all season long, and this is an Angels bullpen that leaves a whole lot of something to be desired, as you've got a lot of guys that are rocking north of a 4.5 ERA. You've actually had Hunter Strickland look very solid. He, in an 11-inning sample size, has yet to give up a run, but he is the only pitcher that has been a reliever for this team that has went north of 6 innings that is posting up an ERA below a 4.35. As Kenley Jansen has a 4.37 ERA. You had Brock and Roll Burke give you about a 4.85 ERA. Ryan Seferian has been rough, so I do think that there's going to be runs aplenty in this game. I think that the ball is going to be in play quite a bit. I set my total 9.6. I like the over and at a plus 132 or higher. I like the Angels on the money line. 965, 966 on the betting board. It is the Walker Texas Rangers, and they're playing against the Chicago White Sox. Right now, it is old to be determined on the bump for the Southsiders, and it will be one Mr. Jacob deGrom on the bump for the Texas Rangers. So this game is off the board, and it's looking like Mike Vasil is either going to be a starter or an opener for the White Sox in this case, as they did give him a start a few days ago, as they've been transitioning him from the bullpen to being a starter, and as a result, I've got my handicap on this game, as I do have the White Sox at a plus 242. I need at least plus 241 to take a shot there. Minus 243 or better looking at the Rangers, and then I would be willing to take the Rangers at a minus 107 or better on the run line, and made a total of 7.4. 7 or less, looking at the over 7.5 or higher. The under, if you do indeed give Vasil, whether he be as a starter or as a bulk guy, he's actually been really good for this White Sox team. Now, is he doing for a whole lot of aggression? Yes, he is. For Mike Vasil, he has been not necessarily getting a whole bunch of strikeouts. He's been inducing a lot of soft contact in general. 6.1 strikeouts, 4.8 walks per 9 innings, but I mean, he's gotten out there and he's gotten the job done. 41 and a third innings, 2.18 ERA, so he's starting to back it up quite a bit more in his first start against the Royals. Only did go 3 and a third innings, did allow 2 runs, so a little bit of suspectness there. And for the Rangers, they had 2 16 spots that they put up on the board earlier in the week against the Minnesota Twins, so shout out to them. I don't think that that is going to be long lasting with this offense, as you still have a whole bunch of guys that overall for the season just have not played up to their potential. You've got these guys like Marcus Semien, throw in there Jake Berger, Jock Peterson, who's currently on the injured list, Adolis Garcia, all these guys, 225 or lower. Corey Seager has been miserable since coming off the injured list. He's now hitting less than a 245, 6 home runs in his first 140 plus at-bats this season. Wyatt Langford, not really moved the line, hitting at 231. He does have 13 home runs, which helps, and Evan Carter has looked really good. 4 home runs in his first 60 at-bats. He's starting to look like the guy that we saw 2 years ago, so you'd love to see that. Josh Smith is hitting darn near 280, but all in all, it is a relatively rough Rangers team. And then for the Chicago White Sox, man, you just don't have a lot of power with this team, as Miguel Vargas has been able to give you 9 home runs this season, and Luis Robert and Benintendi 6 home runs apiece. But, man, Luis Robert hitting below the Mendoza line of 200, less than a 250 on base. Does have 21 stolen bases, but, I mean, it's as if the stink is just really went from the team and it's rubbed off on him. Now, you do have Chase Medriath, hopefully I said that correctly, along with Mike Tauchman, both hitting above a 280, but then you've got the likes of Michael A. Taylor, Vinny Capra, Yohan Rojas, Joshua Palacios. These guys, they're hitting below a 220. You're not getting a ton there. And it is a White Sox team that is right around about 21st, 22nd in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. They pick up Aaron Savali, so yay, verily for them. That'll help them out in a few days. But that said, you've got the likes of a Tyler Gilbert, who just came off the injury list, Brandon Iser, Cam Bouger, these guys posting up north of a 4 ERA. Tyler Alexander also comes on over from the Brewers, has not necessarily been that great. And for the Texas Rangers, probably not going to need too much for that bullpen, with it being Mr. Jacob deGrom, who's going to be on the bump here. 2.12 ERA. His strikeout numbers are a little bit down. That's why his fielding dependent is more in that mid-3 range, but that's it. For Mr. deGrom, he has been able to do a nice job of keeping the walks down, only getting about 2 walks per 9 innings. He has been incredibly dominant ever since that first start or two of the season. As a matter of fact, you take a look at his last 5 starts, he has only given up a grand total of 5 runs, and after he had those few shaky starts in early April / very, very late March, he has been able to hone in 2 runs or fewer allowed, and now each out of his last 10 starts, I do think that he goes out there, dominates this one, and I think that you get another low total in this game as a result, especially with the fact that you've been able to have someone like a Chris Martin be able to step up in this bullpen for the Texas Rangers. He's been able to give you a sub-3 ERA. You've been able to have some nice mixing and matching with having Robert Garcia give you a sub-350 ERA. You've had good innings as well out of someone like Sharon Armstrong, who served as the opener yesterday. Hobie Milner has been able to give you sub-2 ERA. So 7 or less, looking at the over 7.5 or higher, the under for the Rangers. Up to a -107 is what I'm willing to lay on that run line. Set them at a -241 on the money line. You can at least +243 to take a shot on the Southsiders. 967, 968 on the betting board. The Kansas City Royals play host the Athletics. As for the Athletics, it's one to be determined who's going to be on the bump for them, and you've got Michael Lorenzen on the bump for the Royals. This game is off the board. The A's have been so slow in terms of announcing their starters. It's looking like it should be one Jacob Lopez going for them, and you do get Lopez going up against Michael Lorenzen. I did set the Royals at a -204 on the money line. I'd be willing to go up to a -105 on that run line. Need at least a +205 to take a shot on the A's, and did set a total at 8.7. 8.5 or less, looking at the over 9 or higher. The under, I recognize that this is a Royals team that's averaging 3.1 runs per game at home. Dead last in the big leagues. Jack Caglione has had a tough time being able to transition up to the big league level since he got promoted, and you just don't have a lot of power with this Kansas City Royals team. Bottom 3 team in the big leagues in terms of home runs per at bat. Vinny Pasquantino has 10 home runs, and he's giving you about a 280 average. And Bobby Witt Jr., for a guy not named Bobby Witt, he's having a nice year. 8 home runs, hitting at 285, but for his standards, he's way down even with the 21 stolen bases. But you do have someone like a Michael Massey, who's been only hitting at 200. He's been in and out of the lineup over the last few days. Hunter Renfroe was just a lost cause. They had to DFA him. Kevon Biggio has been miserable when they've given him at-bats. They've had to just dump on so many guys, and they've had to just try to mix and match from there. You do have the likes of Drew Waters, Kyle Isbell, who are both hitting about a 270, but neither of these guys are giving you any sort of power whatsoever. Salvador Perez has been miserable with the 269 on base, but you've got a Athletics team that is currently right there at dead last in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. They're right there with the LA Angels, and they're just not getting good innings out of darn near anyone right now. And for Jacob Lopez, he's a guy that has made a few appearances out of the bullpen. He's made a few starts, and it doesn't matter if he's been a starter or if he's been a reliever. He has just not been too great for this bunch, as right now he is rocking a 6 ERA. He is getting 11.5 strikeouts per 9 innings to his credit, but he's also giving up 4.5 walks per 9 innings. He's giving up 1.5 home runs per 9 innings. His fielding dependence is lower than a 6, but just has not been that great. And then he's backed up by a bullpen that, among guys that have seen at least 10 innings of action thus far this season, you've got 2 guys, and Mitch Spence is looking like he's going to be a starter now moving forward with a sub-425 ERA, Hogan Harris being the other one of them. Justin Turner has been okay out of the bullpen, and Mason Miller, after a rough start to the season, he's starting to find it a little bit more, but man, now you're trying out there Oswaldo Beto from the bullpen. You have not been able to get anything whatsoever out of the likes of TJ McFarland. Grant Holman now has a 5 ERA. This has been a lineup, though, that has been pretty solid. They're about league average with regards to runs per game away from home. Tyler Soderstrom along Brent Rooker combined 29 home runs this season, and both are giving you at 340 on base. You've had J.J. Bleday be miserable. He's sitting at 200, but Lawrence Butler is giving you something solid, 325 on base, so he's been able to do a nice job. And Jacob Wilson hitting north of a 360. He's now got north of a 4 on base because he's learning to draw a few walks. That's been rock solid as well. Some of the guys toward the bottom of the lineup like Max Muncy and company leave something to be desired, but Luis Rios about a 340 on base. Do think though that the Royals should be able to go out there and dominate. Lucas Scherzer is fresh off the injury list. He and Carlos Estevez have both been able to give you sub 250 ERA in the 8th and 9th innings. Steven Cruz has been able to give you sub 3 ERA. You've had Daniel Lynch be rock solid in this bullpen, and then for Michael Lorenzen, I recognize that he has not been amazing. 494 ERA, 475 fielding dependent, giving up 1.6 home runs per 9 innings, but I do think that he's going to do a nice job against an A's team that I think that they're going to generate a few runs off of him, but I do think that for the A's, that they're going to let the Royals be able to get online with their offense. 8.5 or less, like the over 9 or higher, the under, and for the Royals, willing to go up to a -105 on this run line with regards to the A's, need at least plus 205 to take a shot on them. 969, 970 on the betting board. The Minnesota Twins are on the road facing off against the Houston Astros as Hunter Brown is on the bump for the Stros, and you've got Joe Ryan on the bump for Minnesota. And Minnesota does find themselves as a very slim underdog between plus 104 to a plus 112, and between minus 120 to a minus 126 is that number on Houston. 7 is the total, over and under anywhere between minus 105 to a minus 115, and when it comes to the Astros, set them at a minus 141 on the money line. I'm going to be willing to lay it for the Astros. Just so dominant with Hunter Brown right now. He has given up 2 runs or fewer in 9 out of his last 11 starts. This guy has been dominant. Give you a sub 185 ERA, 10.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, less than 2.5 walks per 9 innings, 0.7 home runs per 9 innings. Not much more needs to be said. This guy's gone out there and has done his job every single start. And for Joe Ryan, he does allow quite a bit of hard contact on the road. You look at his career numbers, 364 home ERA compared to a 396 ERA on the road. That's not too demonstrative, but closer to about 1.2, 1.3 home runs allowed per 9 innings at home. That balloons up to north of 1.5 away from home, and that does need to be a little bit of a concern. Now he's gone up against an Astros team that has been in the bottom 10 in the big leagues in terms of runs per game, and you do have an Astros bunch that you could use a little bit more out of a pair of guys, and Christian Walker along with Yandy Diaz both give you a sub 285 on base. Both have been able to give you between 9 and 10 home runs, and then you had Isaac Paredes up to 15 bombs, 350 on base. He's been great. Jose Altuve starting around into form. He's back to hitting at 275. Jeremy Pena hitting at 325 and 9 home runs. That's rock solid, but these guys at the bottom of the lineup not really giving you a lot of power. Victor Carantini, Cam Smith, Mauricio Dubon. You're not going to get any sort of home run power out of some of these guys. And Jake Myers is solid at being above the line, hitting about a 346, but that lack of power has been really hurting the Astros, and that's where Yordan Alvarez's injury comes into play. But when it comes to the bullpen of this Astros team, top 9 team with regards to bullpen ERA, you've had the Bryans, Brian King, Brian Abreu, along with Steven Okert, Bennett Sosa, along with even Sean Dubin, the closer, and Josh Hader, all be able to give you a sub 285 ERA, and then you take a look at the flip side, and you've got a bunch in the Minnesota Twins that has been very good with regards to their bullpen as well. They're a top 10 team with regards to their bullpen ERA. At the very least, they were prior to that series against the Texas Rangers, where things just went completely down the toilet bowl for them, but their top flight relievers have still been really good. Danny Kalum is fresh off the injury list, has yet to give up a run thus far this season. Brock and Roll Stewart, the closer, and Yohan Duran, Louis Varland, these guys being able to give you a sub 3 ERA. Justin Topa has been able to give you some good innings, but for the Minnesota Twins, about a league average offense with below average power. Byron Buxton, Trevor Larnach, both between 10 and 11 home runs apiece. Larnach just hitting about a 255. Buxton has been able to about a 275 himself. Willie Castro, to his credit, he's moving the line. He's been able to give you a 360 on base. He's been a little bit banged up throughout the season, but then you've got Harrison Bader who's been able to give you about a 340 or so on base. I really do like what I've been seeing out of Cody Clement. Small sample size, 6 home runs and 91 at-bats. Not necessarily hitting for the world's greatest amount of average, but a 333 on base. But in the end, I think that the Astros just absolutely dominate here with Hunter Brown. I did set them at a minus 142. I like their money line. I did set my total at 7.1. I do think that Joe Ryan gives up a deep ball or two in this one, so I like the over and that Astros money line. 971, 972 on the card. The Boston Red Sox plays the New York Yankees. One Carlos Rodon is on the bump for the Yankees. Hunter Dobbins is on the bump for Boston. Boston is a sizable underdog between plus 140 to a plus 147, and between minus 162 to a minus 173. That number on the Yankees. 8.5 is the total, over and under, anywhere between minus 105 to a minus 115. And for Mr. Carlos Rodon, I did set him at a money line price of a minus 153. If you're taking a look at laying a run F with the Yankees, you're going to be able to get that at a plus 104. I would need at least a plus 112 to be able to fire in there, so we're going to see how things progress. Right now, I'm seeing for the Red Sox more around like plus 145-ish prices, so I mean, it is very much a need to see what the timelines offer sort of situation, but I do think that when it's all said and done, I'll probably be taking a stab on the Red Sox. I'm seeing a plus 151 out there right now, and that should be going northward. As for Carlos Rodon, last time he hit the mound, he got absolutely lit up by the Boston Red Sox, and with Carlos Rodon, I did think that there was going to be a little bit of regression with him, but I do like the way that he pitches on the road. For Carlos Rodon, overall for the season, he's been able to give you a 2.87 ERA. Obviously, Yankee Stadium does cause for you to yield just a few more runs in general, but you take a look at what Rodon has been able to do on the road thus far this season, and he's really been able to cut down on not giving up the deep ball. When he's been away from home, he has given up 4 home runs in 38 innings, 2.61 ERA, so he's been rock solid there, but as we know, Fenway is a little bit of a different beast, and for Dobbins, he did give up quite a few runs at his last start as well, but still, overall, he's been able to do a nice job holding down the fort. He's not going to blow you away with his swing and miss stuff, 6.8 strikeouts per 9 innings, but 1.1 home runs, 1.8 walks per 9 innings, 4.20 ERA, 3.89 fielding pennant, and he's given up 300 runs or fewer in 4 of his last 5 starts, so he's been able to be presentable. And for the Yankees, what has not been very presentable is the bullpen without Luke Weaver, as Weaver has been one of the most dominant relievers in the big league since the beginning of last season, and you do have Fernando Cruz, Tim Hill, rocking a sub-325 ERA out of both of these guys, but Ian Hamilton, Mark Leiter Jr., Devin Williams, these guys with north of a 3.95 ERA have been rough. Jonathan Loaisiga has had a little bit of a rough go of it in the bullpen as well. So for the Yankees, they need to slug their way to victory. Top 4 team in terms of runs per game. Aaron Judge has been just all sorts of amazing. 488 on base, 25 home runs, and then Ben Rice, Trent Grisham, combined 25 home runs, both hitting between about 235 to 245, but solid in terms of on-base percentage, with Rice about a 325 on base at a good slugging percentage. Grisham about a 350 on base. Yasan Dominguez has been able to give you about a 333 on base as well. For Jazz Chisholm, it's been a case where he's been able to give you a lot of power this year. Hasn't necessarily been able to hit for a lot of average, as he has been in and out of the lineup, and it fears as though he's dealing with a growing injury once again, but they've been without him all season long. Cody Bellinger has been able to pick it up a little bit more recently, and Paul Goldschmidt continues to give you a 370 on base. And then for the Boston Red Sox, it took them a few games to be able to find their way without having Alex Bregman, but you've got Rafael Devers, Weiler Abreu, both give you 13 plus home runs. Abreu's hitting about a 320 on base, but Devers north of 400 on base. Jaron Duran is not hitting for a ton of power, but he's hitting a 270. Carlos Cervantes is hitting about a 280. Sedane Rafael is finding a way to move the line. Trevor Story continues to be useless. I recognize he's got 9 home runs, but man, 275 on base, you need a little bit more there. And after Christian Campbell was just rough to begin his career, he's been able to give you a little bit of something as well. And now you've got Roman Anthony getting called up to the big league level. He was able to have only 1 hit in this first series, but it was a hit that was a double that was able to drive in some runs. I do think that he's going to be able to give this team a little bit more of a boost moving forward. And for the Red Sox, I do like what this bullpen is bringing to the table. You've got a pair of guys who have been able to give you a sub-225 ERA and Aroldis Chapman along with Brendan Bernardino. You've been able to get some really good innings as well out of Greg Weissert. He's rocking a sub-265 ERA. Well, Bernardino is starting to fall down the toilet bowl. He did have a sub-225 ERA about 7 or so days ago. That's been a little bit rough for him, but so you've got Garrett Whitlock, who's been able to give you some nice multiple inning appearances. He's been able to give you a sub-325 ERA, and you still have Luis Guerrero giving you a sub-3 ERA as well along with Justin Wilson. So I do think that for the Red Sox, they do present a little bit of value here. If I can get a plus 153 or higher, we'll look at that money line, and did set my total at 8.8. I do think the Carlos Rodon gives up a few runs out there in a very hitter-friendly Fenway Park, so I like the over, and I do like the Red Sox at a plus 153 or better on the money line. 973, 974 on the betting board. The Cleveland Guardians. We do know that for the Cleveland Guardians, it is going to be Tanner Bybee on the bump for them. It's supposed to be George Kirby right now for the Seattle Mariners, but there is still a little bit of, shall we say, question mark there. So that is a big reason why this game is presently off the board. But assuming that we do get George Kirby, I'd be willing to go up to a minus 142 on the Mariners money line. And we do have an additional opener over at FanDuel. The Mariners are at a minus 130 plus 110 with the Guardians. 7 is a total, over and under both at minus 110. And if we do get that, I'd be setting my total at 7.8. I would be looking at the over. George Kirby coming off of 14 strikeouts at his last start against the LA Angels. I don't think that Lightning is going to be striking twice. It's always been good in terms of command. He was looking really rough in his minor league rehab appearances and his first few starts in general. First 3 starts, he was posting up a miserable 70 ERA. He's better than this. We all know that. And his command is back. He's giving up 1.7 walks per 9 innings, but I do have my question marks with him a little bit more moving forward. But I also have my question marks with Tanner Bybee as well. He just does not look like the same pitcher this year. His swing and miss stuff is way down. 7.4 strikeouts per 9 innings after that was 9.6 7.7 strikeouts per 9 innings this season ago, and he's getting hit hard. 1.7 home runs allowed per 9 innings. 3.81 ERA, but a 4.83 fielding independent. Now, Seattle is about the most pitcher-friendly ballpark that you're going to find in the big leagues if you look at ballpark factors, but for Bibee, 250 home ERA, 3 home runs allowed in 36 innings. He has allowed 11 bombs in 39 and 2/3 innings with a 4.99 ERA. Away from home, and he is backed up by a Cleveland Guardians lineup that has been in the bottom 10 in the big leagues in terms of runs per game because it's a very top-heavy lineup. The guys at the top, Steven Kwan, along with Jose Ramirez, both hitting above a 300, or Ramirez up to 12 home runs, and you've had Carlos Santana give you a 350 on base, even Gabriel Urias, along with Anel Martinez, both hitting about a 240. Not great, but presentable. But you've got Kyle Manzardo, even with the 11 home runs, he's just not hitting for a lot of average, as he, Lane Thomas, John Kenzie Noel, Nolan Jones, Will Wilson, the backup catcher, and Austin Hedges, Dylan Fry, all these guys hitting at 210 or lower. You just need a bit more there. And for the Seattle Mariners, you've got big dumper Cal Raleigh, who has slowed down a little bit in terms of his power thus far this season, but I mean, still, 26 home runs, giving you north of a 370 on base. He has been tremendous. And as Julio Rodriguez has been picking it up, you have had Jorge Polanco start to fall back down to earth a little bit. Both of these guys, 262 with 10 home runs thus far this season. Roddy Tellez also has 7 bombs, but at 253 on base, you need a little bit more there, but you've been able to have someone like a Dylan Moore could be able to give you more. He's been a little bit in and out of the lineup, but 8 home runs. He's hitting for about a 300 on base. Miles Mastroboni is actually up to a 320 on base, even though he doesn't hit for like any sort of power whatsoever. And for the Seattle Mariners, it's a bullpen that has been a little bit up and down, but the top guys have been the top guys for this team, as Matt Brash has come off the injured list and he has not allowed a run all season long. You've got Gabe Spire along with Andres Munoz be able to give you a sub 225 ERA. Heck, you've even been able to get some good innings out of Carlos Vargas, who's giving you a sub 365 ERA. And then for the Cleveland Guardians, this is more of a league average bullpen this season. After last year, they were number 1 in terms of bullpen ERA. Emmanuel Clase is starting to look a little bit more like himself. Tim Aaron is as well. Both of these guys are back below a 360 with regards to ERA. Hunter Gaddis has been dominant all season long, north of 12 strikeouts per 9 innings, a sub 2 ERA. Cade Smith, a sub 250 ERA. He's been able to give you 13.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, but then you have the guys like a Matthew Festa, Jacob Junis, guys like this that are posting up north of 380 ERA. They're very much rolls of the dice, and if we do get this initial opener like I'm seeing at FanDuel, I'd be willing to ride with the Mariners on the money line, set them at a minus 142, and I like that 7 over, so my total is 7.8. 975, 976 on the betting board. The Cincinnati Reds, and yes, we're on to Cincinnati. They're onto the road. They're facing off against the Detroit Tigers. Captain Jack Flaherty is on the bump for the Tigers. Brady Singer hopes to have the Tigers singing the blues, and for the Reds, you're finding them anywhere between a plus 140 to a plus 147 underdog, and between minus 160 to minus 172. Then number on Detroit, 8 is the total, over and under anywhere between minus 105 to a minus 115, and I did set the Tigres at a minus 177, so I'm going to be willing to take a shot on them, but I'm much more interested in that run line. I'd be willing to take a plus 108 or higher on that, and right now, find that at a plus 126. Sign me up for that. You do have a bunch in the Tigers that are all of a sudden in the top 8 with regards to runs per game, and they've got a guy in Jack Flaherty who has given up a little bit too much of the deep ball this year. 1.4 home runs allowed per 9 innings, but that swing and miss stuff has been supreme. 10.7 strikeouts per 9 innings, and he's reaching peak form. Has allowed just 1 run over the course of his last 3 starts, has allowed just 5 earned runs over the course of his last 5 starts, and after a little bit of shakiness with regards to giving up the hard contact, he's really been able to reel that in. And for Brady Singer, it's been just a rough season for him in general. And I like Brady Singer. I think that he's a rock-solid pitcher. But a 4.59 ERA, he has seen his strikeout numbers dip all the way to 7.3. That is a career worst. The 3.8 walks per 9 innings, career worst. 1.2 home runs allowed per 9 innings, career worst. So ever since moving to Cincinnati, it's not been great. 4.59 ERA, 4.46 feeling independent, and he's given up between 2 and 3 runs at each out of his last 5 starts. Hasn't been amazing. Hasn't been terrible, and I think that you get a presentable start here. Nothing amazing, but at the same time, he's not going to completely just unravel, but now you go up against a Detroit Tigers team that they've got a trio of guys that have given at least 13 home runs this season. Spencer Torkelson, Riley Green, along Kerry Carpenter and Green both hitting above a 260, Torkelson a 340 on base, but I mean, these are not so shots that these guys are hitting, because Gleyber Torres is giving you a 370 on base, Zach McKinstry at 365 on base, Javi Baez is hitting a 275, Dylan Dingler is hitting a 280, and he's starting to supply some power as well, just 1 through 9, really, other than someone like a Justin Henry Malloy have been hitting, and even Henry Malloy is up to a 350 on base, and he's able to swipe some bags if he gets on base as well. He hasn't really shown that thus far this season, but he does have that in him. And for the Detroit Tigers, this continues to be a team that mixes and matches with regards to their bullpen. In terms of bullpen ERA, since the All-Star break of the 2024 campaign, number 1 in the American League with that regard. You've got so many guys like a Brendan Hennepy, Chase Lee, Tommy Canley, the opener from yesterday, Brian Herter, Will Vest, all these these guys give you a sub 3.35 ERA, and you just don't have that on the flip side, as you got a Reds team that's hovering right around about league average with regards to that bullpen ERA. Tony Santillan has been bad. He's been giving you about a sub 3.50 ERA. Taylor Rogers has done a good job of being able to go out there, hold down the fort. He's giving you about a 2.45 ERA, and then Ryan Richardson, Brent Suter have both been able to give you a sub 2.30 ERA. They're both capable of going multiple innings for you, but Emilio Pagan just gives up way too many home runs. He's already allowed 5 bombs in 28 2/3 innings. Graham Ashcraft, as a long guy, has been posting up about a 4 ERA. Ian Gabo has not been impressing me, and for the Cincinnati Reds team, you just don't necessarily have the world's greatest, shall we say, lineup. You're getting back Christian Encarnacion strand. He's only hit a 210 for the season, but 5 home runs in his first 80 at-bats. I think that he finds his way. TJ Friedel, along Gavin Lux, both north of a 365 on base. Not a ton of power out of these guys, as right now you've got Ellie De La Cruz with 13 home runs entering into Friday. Nobody else entering into Friday with north of 7 home runs. That's a big issue, especially when you've got Matt McClain hitting below the middle sign of 200. Jake Fraley only hitting about a 215, albeit with about a 330 on base. Just not a lot there, and I do think that for Jack Flaherty, he goes out there, dominates this one, and gets the job done. I did set my tilt at 8.2, so here at the 8, I do like the over. I think that the Tigers do get to Brady Singer, and I do like this run line of the Tigers. 977, 978 on the card. The Philadelphia Phillies play also the Toronto Blue Jays. Bowden Francis is on the bump for the Jays. Cadiz Defer Sanchez is on the bump for the Phillies. The Phillies are between minus 165 to minus 176 favorites, and between plus 140 to a plus 150 is that number on Toronto. 8.5 is the total. Under is minus 120, and the over is even. And with the Phillies, I actually set them at a minus 216 on the money line. I'd be willing to go up to a minus 110 on the run line, and I'm pretty sure that we're going to get good plus money here. Right now, seeing a FanDuel plus 126. Sign me up. With Bowden Francis, 19 home runs allowed in 60 and a third innings this season. He has given up north of 2.6 home runs per 9 innings. He has just been getting banged around like a human piñata, and for Bowden Francis, it's not even like the command is good. 3.6 walks allowed per 9 innings, 6.12 ERA. Fielding pennant is a little bit lower than that, but it's not much lower than that. And Christopher Sanchez has been great. 10.3 strikeouts allowed per 9 innings, giving up less than a home run per 9 innings. 3.10 ERA. Since the beginning of the 2024 season, he's got an ERA more than a full point better at home rather than on the road. Now, for the Philadelphia Phillies, the trepidation that you do have is with this lineup just being a little bit banged up, Bryce Harper being on the injured list. That is very much less than ideal, but you know what? You've been able to get some good production out of Kyle Schwarber all season long. He's right now supplying you with 21 home runs. He's been able to give you north of a 360 on base. You've also got Trey Turner give you that 360 on base. He and Max Kepler both 7 home runs apiece. Need to get a little bit more average out of Kepler, but I mean, even these guys aren't necessarily going yard. Nick Castellanos, Alec Boehm, these guys have been able to hit above a 280. Omando Sosa at the bottom lineup is move a line, and for the Blue Jays, they entered into yesterday having won 11 out of their last 13 games, but you still have a few question marks here because they're a team that's outside the top 24 with regards to home runs per at-bat. George Springer, 10 home runs this far this season, but I mean, Dalton Varsho is tied for second on the team in home runs. He's currently on the 10-day injury list, and he's missed 40 games this far this season. Now, you've got plenty of guys that are getting on base. Nathan Lukes, Miles Straw, Addison Barger, George Springer, I mentioned before, allowing at least a 259. Flagger Jr., north of 375 on base. You've got Bo Bichette, who's able to give you a 275 as well, but do have a lot of question marks there. Now, I will say this for the Toronto Blue Jays. This has been a team that's ascended to being a top 10 team with regards to bullpen ERA. You've had a lot of guys that you've been able to mix and match with. Jeff Hoffman has been looking a little bit better after he had a really rough start to the season, but then you take a look at the likes of Brandon Little, Paxton Schultz, Yuriel Rodriguez, Braden Fisher. These guys give you a sub 325 ERA. That's been rock solid. You do have Yimi Garcia, who's right now dealing with injury, but even someone like a Mason Flaharty has been able to give you some solid innings. Chad Green has had a rough start to the season, but I do think that he's going to be able to pick it up moving forward. And then on the flip side, Jose Alvarado, currently being on the injured list / being on the suspension list for the Philadelphia Phillies. He took a weight loss supplement, so that's not the injured list. That's injuring his own pocketbook. He is currently out of the fold for this team. Matt Strom has been giving you a sub 375 ERA, and Orion Kirkering has been able to do a nice job as well. But I mean, you've got a lot of guys like Carlos Hernandez, along with Jordan Romano, who just have not been great in this bullpen. But that said, I do think that you're going to be able to get a nice rock solid start out of Christopher Sanchez. I do think that this Phillies team is going to be able to get to Bowden Francis and be able to slug their way to victory. So, circumstance where I'm going to be willing to take a shot here on that Philadelphia Phillies run line, and I'm going to be willing to take a shot on the over as well, as I did set my total more in that neighborhood of a 8.8, and we wrap things up with 979, 980 on the betting board. The New York Mets are going to be playing us to the Tampa Bay Rays as Drew Rasmussen is on the bump for the Rays and Tyler McGill goes for the Metropolitans. And for the Mets, you're going to be finding them as a favorite of any between minus 130 to a minus 140 and between plus 118 to a plus 126 is that number on Tampa Bay. 7.5 is the total. The under is minus 115 and the over is minus 105. And it's one of these circumstances where I'm going to be willing to take a shot on the Mets. I set them at a minus 152 on the money line. For Tyler McGill, does he have his walks issues? Yes, he does. He's certainly been giving up north of 3.5 walks per 9 innings, but that said, he's been able to do a really good job of just being able to mow them down. 3.76 ERA while rocking about 11.7 strikeouts per 9 innings. He's keeping the ball in the yard. He's given up only about 0.7 home runs per 9 innings, and additionally, you've been able to get a really good bullpen pitching behind him as well. So even if McGill does knock himself out of the start early and he's gone 5 innings or fewer in 3 out of his last 5 starts, this team is number 2 in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. Oscar Zobin has been able to give you a sub 2 ERA. You've been able to have Jose Buto as a little bit of a long guy, be able to supply a sub 350 ERA. Max Kranick has been relatively good in a long roll, and then the single inning guys, Edwin Diaz along with Reed Garrett. I recognize that Diaz did blow you the run line a few days ago, but still, these guys have been able to do a nice job there, and you've got a Metropolitans team that is in the top 10 with regards to runs per game, with Juan Soto getting hot 6 home runs over the last 3 or so weeks. He's all of a sudden up to a 365 on base. Once again, you've been able to have Pete Alonso be able to give you about a 390 on base with 17 home runs, and Soto's actually up to a 385 on base, so even better there. Francisco Lindor playing through that injury, 14 bombs, 350 on base. He has been rock solid. Brandon Nimmo, not necessarily hitting for a great average, but 13 home runs. You could use a little bit more from the likes of Luanel Acuna, Brett Beatty, these guys at the bottom of the fold. Jeff McNeil, though, has come back, 7 home runs in his first 120 at-bats. He's hitting about a 270 for this unit. And then on the flip side for the Tampa Bay Rays, this is a team that all of a sudden is becoming slightly above average with regards to their run creation, as you've had a really good performance this season out of Jonathan Randa to be able to give you 400 on base. You've got a pair of guys in Brandon Lau along Junior Caminero who've been able to combine for 28 home runs, both hitting between about a 245 to 250. Yandy Diaz over the last 30 days has been hitting well north of 275. He's up to 10 home runs. And Jose Calabreo, about a 330 on base, but 25 stolen bases, one of the best marks in the big leagues. This entire catcher spot has been rough. Christopher Morel hitting below a 225. Cameron Misner, Taylor Wells. This is a very top-heavy lineup, but with the Rays, you always know that you're going to get good bullpen pitching as well. Top 18 with regards to bullpen ERA, even with Hunter Biggie being out of the fold. You've had the likes of Pete Fairbanks, Garrett Clevenger, Manuel Rodriguez, Eric Orze, all be able to give you a sub 275 ERA. So I think that this is going to be a well-pitched game, especially with Drew Rasmussen being as solid and as steady as they come. A 222 ERA. Not going to blow you away with the strikeout stuff. He's only been able to get about 7.7 strikeouts per 9 innings, but does a really good job, for lack of a better term, of keeping things out in front of him. Only 1.8 walks and 0.8 home runs allowed per 9 innings. A 324 fielding pennant has allowed a grand total of 2 runs over the course of the last 5 starts. I think that we're going to see a little bit of progression there, especially with his strikeout numbers not necessarily being so high, and I do think that regression starts here. I think that McGill gives up a few runs as well. So my total is 7.6. I do like the over, and I do like the Mets on the money line. Would not want the run line here. I would rather lay a chalkier money line, and that'll wrap things up for the Saturday edition of the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN family of podcasts. If you do like hearing from this fine podcast, Baseball Betting Show, you're able to subscribe wherever your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one of 2 ways we will fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letter CM, name does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. The other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. Big thanks once again to Ben Wilson, who does such great work here at VSiN with all of his play-by-play work, and I'm with you guys every single day throughout the baseball season, which means I'm back for you to get them out. Thank you.
If you work in quality control at a candy factory, you know strict safety regulations come with the job. It's why you partner with Grainger. Grainger helps you find the high-quality and compliant products your business needs to inspect, detect, and help correct issues. And the sweetest part is, everyone gets a product that's as safe to eat as it is delicious. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.